The Federal Treasurer says he won't be rushed into revealing plans for the GST, despite increasing pressure from state leaders. Scott Morrison says there's plenty of time for policy announcements before this year's election. But Queensland's Premier has called on the federal government to be upfront about its intentions. Here's political reporter Julie Doyle.
In this election year, the Treasurer is happy to let the GST speculation run wild.
Right now, the government has made no decisions on this, and we are very much still in that phase, we've said quite plainly.
But with everything still up for discussion, one state Premier is clearly frustrated.
It is about time that they put their plan on the table so we can clearly examine it. At the moment, we are dealing with hypotheticals on a daily basis.
Including a possible increase in the GST to 15% or a broadening of its base.
We do not support an increase in the rate of the GST. It disproportionately impacts those who can least afford it.
Australians who care about growth and inequality should not be supporting an increase in the GST. We'd call on the government to rule it out today.
But Scott Morrison won't be rushed.
Any changes to the tax agenda at that substantive level would be put to the Australian people before an election.
Mr Morrison says his approach to the tax debate has resulted in more ideas and options being considered. And he's pointed to the input from South Australia's Labor Premier, who's raised the idea of increasing the GST and giving states a share of income tax.
I think what's important is that we actually come up with some detailed policy prescriptions, rather than just the idea, the gotcha moment of somebody said one thing and somebody said something different.
While there are plenty of options, Scott Morrison signalled there's one he's not so keen on. That's expanding the GST base to include health and education. The Treasurer's played down that prospect, but like everything else on the tax front, there's no final decision. Julie Doyle, ABC News, Canberra.